there, everybody. Miss Mona's back again with some more of my favorite book, The Phantom Tollbooth. So we left off yesterday. We were in chapter 3. Milo and Talk the Watchdog have arrived at the city of Dictionopolis, and there were some people that were introducing themselves to them, and they called themselves the Duke of Definition, the Minister of Meaning, the Earl of Essence, but in more formal terms, the King's Cabinet. So we're going to pick up where we left off. We'll probably finish off chapter 3 and go a little bit into chapter 4 today. Cabinet, recited the Duke. Number 1, a small private room or closet case with drawers, etc., for keeping valuables or displaying curiosities. A cabinet drawer. Number 2, council room for chief ministers of state. Number 3, a body of official advisors to the chief executive of a nation. Which one do you think they are? Number 1, number 2, or number 3? You see, continued the minister, bowing thankfully to the Duke, Dictionopolis is the place where all the words in the world come from. They're grown right here in our orchards. I didn't know that words grow on trees, said Milo. Where did you think they grew? Shouted the Earl irritably. A small crowd began to gather to see the little boy who didn't know that letters grew on trees. I didn't know they grew at all, admitted Milo. Several people shook their heads sadly. Well, money doesn't grow on trees, does it? Demanded the Count. I've heard not, said Milo. Then something must. Why not words? Exclaimed the undersecretary triumphantly. The crowd cheered in his display of logic and continued about its business. To continue, continued the minister impatiently, once a week by royal proclamation, the word market is here in the great square, and people come from everywhere to buy the words they need or trade in the words they haven't used. Our job, said the Count, is to see that all the words sold are proper ones, for it wouldn't do to sell someone a word that has no meaning or didn't exist at all. For instance, if you bought a word like globus, where would you use it? It would be very difficult, thought Milo, but there were so many words that were difficult, and he knew hardly any of them. But if we never chose which ones to use, exclaimed the Earl, as they walked toward the market stalls, for as long as they mean what they mean to mean, we don't care if they make sense or nonsense. Innocence or magnificence, added the Count. Residence or common sense, said the undersecretary. That seems simple enough, said Milo, trying to be polite. Easy as falling off a log, cried the Earl, falling off a log with a loud thump. Must you be so clumsy? Shouted the Duke. All I was, began the Earl, rubbing his head. There he is, falling off the log. We heard you, said the minister angrily, and you have to find an expression that's less dangerous. The Earl dusted himself off as the other snickered audibly. You see, cautioned the Count, you must pick your words very carefully and be sure to say just what you intend to say. And now we must leave to make preparations for the royal banquet. You'll be there, of course, asked the minister. But before Milo had a chance to say anything, they were rushing off across the square as fast as they had come. Enjoy yourself in the market, shouted back the undersecretary. Market, recited the Duke, an open space or covered building in which... And that was the last Milo heard as they disappeared into the crowd. I never knew words could be so confusing, Milo said to Talk as he bent down to scratch the dog's ear. Only when you use a lot to say a little, answered Talk. Milo thought this was quite the wisest thing he had heard all day. Come, he shouted, let's see the market. It looks very exciting. What do you think about all this word talk? Do you think words are the most important thing? Chapter 4, Confusion in the Marketplace. Uh-oh, what's going to happen in the marketplace? Indeed it was, for as they approached, Milo could see crowds of people pushing and shouting their way among the stalls, buying and selling, trading and bargaining. Huge wooden wheeled carts streamed into the market square from the orchards, and long caravans bound for the four corners of the kingdom made ready to leave. Sacks and boxes were piled high, waiting to be delivered to the ships that sailed to the sea of knowledge, and off to one side a group of minstrels sang songs to the delight of those either too young or too old to engage in trade. But above all the noise and tumulence of the crowd could be heard the merchants' voices loudly advertising their products. What are their products? Words, right? Get your fresh picked ifs, ands, and buts. Hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, nice ripe wares and wins. Juicy, tempting words for sale. There's a picture of the market. Looks very crowded. So many words and so many people. They were far from every place imaginable, and some places even beyond that. And they were all busy sorting, choosing, and stuffing things into cases. As soon as one was filled, another was begun. There seemed to be no end to the bustle and activity. Milo and Talk wandered up and down the aisles, looking at the wonderful assortment of words for sale. There were short ones and easy ones for everyday use, long and very important ones for special occasions, and even some marvelously fancy ones packed in individual gift boxes for use in royal decrees and pronouncements. Step right up, fancy, best quality words right here, announced one man in a booming voice. Step right up. What can I do for you, little boy? How about a nice bag full of pronouns? What's a pronoun? If you can think of a pronoun, put it in the comments. Or maybe you'd like our special assortment of names. Milo had never thought much about words before, but those looked so good he longed to have some of them. Look, Talk, he cried, aren't they wonderful? They're fine if you have something to say, replied Talk in a tired voice, for he was much more interested in finding a bone than he was in shopping for new words. Maybe if I buy some, I can learn how to use them, said Milo eagerly as he began to pick through the words. Finally, he chose 3 words which looked particularly good to him: quagmire, flabbergast, and upholstery. He had no idea what he meant, but they looked very grand and elegant. How much are these? He inquired. And when the man whispered the answer, he quickly put them back on the shelf and started to walk on. Why not take a few pounds of happy? Advised the salesman. They're much more practical and very useful for happy birthday, happy new year, happy days, happy-go-lucky. I'd like to very much, began Milo, but... Or perhaps you'd be interested in a package of goods, always handy for good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and goodbye, he suggested. Milo didn't want to buy something, but the only money he had... Milo did want to buy something, but the only money he had was the coin he needed to get back through the toll booth, and Talk, of course, had nothing but the time. No, thank you, replied Milo. We're just looking. And they continued on through the market. As they turned down the last aisle of stalls, Milo noticed a wagon that seemed different from the rest. On its side was a small, neatly lettered sign that said, "Do it yourself." And inside were 26 bins filled with all the letters of the alphabet from A to Z. These are for people who like to make their own words, the man in charge informed him. You can pick any assortment you like, or buy a special box complete with all letters, punctuation marks, and a book of instruction. Here, taste an A. They're very good. Milo nibbled carefully at the letter and discovered that it was quite sweet and delicious. Just the way you would expect an A to taste. And that's where I'll stop for today. So there's the man at the market trying to sell him some words. So a couple responses that you can put in the comments for some extra credit are, tell me some pronouns. List 3 pronouns in the comments. You could tell me what one of the words that Milo wanted to buy. What do they mean? Quagmire, flabbergast, and upholstery. Tell me what they mean in the comments. And lastly, for extra credit, if you could buy any word in the world, what would it be and why? So basically, what's your favorite word? All right, have a great night, everybody.